It's 4:10 on a wet Tuesday, somewhere on the old A1, and the only light for 3 miles is a steamed-up window with a hand-painted sign reading KFF, open all night. Inside, a dozen drivers hunch over Formica tables, cabs ticking cold in the dark outside, while the woman behind the counter cracks eggs onto a griddle that hasn't been switched off since Sunday. This is where Britain was really fed, not in restaurants, but in transport caffs along the trunk roads, where a driver's breakfast had to carry him 400 miles. We're counting down 25 of the most brutal, glorious, artery-testing breakfasts ever served at that hour. Let's begin with number 25. Number 25. Fried mushrooms in bacon fat opened many a plate before the heavy hitters arrived. The Caff cook never wasted a clean pan, so a handful of button mushrooms went straight into the black slick left behind by the morning's bacon, hissing and shrinking until they turned glossy and dark as boot polish. A shovelful cost the driver next to nothing, threepence on the side in the late 50s, and it filled a corner of the plate that might otherwise have gone begging. The earthy smell cut through the fug of frying and cigarette smoke, and men who'd not eaten since the last lay-by fell on them first. Some cafes kept a great enamel bowl of them stewing gently at the back of the range all night, ready to be ladled beside eggs at any hour. Humble, greasy, and quietly essential, fried mushrooms were the unsung workhorse of the truckers' fry-up. Number 24. Fried potatoes were the Caff's answer to yesterday's leftovers and tomorrow's long haul. Cold boiled spuds from the night before were sliced thick and thrown onto the griddle in dripping, pressed down with the back of a fish slice until the edges crisped golden and the middles turned soft and buttery. Nothing was ever wasted in a transport cafe, where margins were thin and the potato sack was king. A plate of them cost a few pence and sat heavy enough to line a man's stomach against a night of cab heaters and thermos coffee. Drivers reckoned they were better than chips at that hour, less grease running off, more substance clinging on. The cook would salt them hard and slide them beside eggs and beans without a word. Simple, filling, and cheap. As anything on the board, fried spuds kept the wheels of the nation turning through the small hours. Number 23. Grilled tomatoes brought the only whisper of freshness to a plate otherwise built from fat and salt. Halved and laid cut side up under the grill or pressed onto the flat, they blistered and caught at the edges, their juices bubbling into a sweet, sharp puddle that men mopped up with fried bread. In an age before anyone counted vitamins, the tomato was the Caff's token nod to greenery, the one thing on the plate a wife might have approved of. A driver could kid himself it was healthy. Tinned plum tomatoes did the same job when fresh ones were dear, tipped straight from the can and simmered down until they collapsed. The bright red slick against the beige of everything else made the plate look almost cheerful under the strip lights. Sharp, soft, and faintly virtuous, grilled tomatoes were the vegetable that earned its place through sheer stubborn tradition. Number 22. A ladle of baked beans was the great leveler of the transport cafe, the one thing every plate carried and no driver refused. Great catering tins of Heinz sat open by the range, simmering all night until the sauce turned thick and sticky and clung to the spoon. The cook ladled them on with abandon, a small orange lake that seeped into the beans and toast set and threatened to breach the eggs. Cheap, hot, and filling, beans stretched a breakfast further than any butcher's cut and cost the cafe pennies a portion. Drivers argued over whether beans belonged touching the bacon or fenced off in their own corner, a debate that has never been settled to this day. A round of beans on fried bread alone could see a man to Scotch corner. Comforting, ubiquitous, and quietly essential, the humble baked bean was the mortar that held the whole brutal breakfast together. Number 21. Bubble and Squeak carried the thrift of the wartime kitchen straight onto the Caff griddle. Leftover mash and cabbage, sometimes a stray sprout or carrot, were mashed together, patted into a rough cake, and fried hard in dripping until the underside formed a dark, crackling crust. The name came from the sound, the hiss and pop as the vegetables protested against the hot fat. Cooks made it in vast slabs and cut it into wedges, each one browned to order beside the eggs. For a driver, it was ballast. Cheap and dense, the sort of food that sat in the belly for hours and asked for nothing more. The crisp edges were fought over, the soft middle less prized. A wedge cost a few coppers and turned scraps into sustenance. Frugal, savory, and gloriously unfashionable, Bubble and Squeak was proof that a calf wasted nothing that could still be fried. Number 20. Egg and chips was the plate a tired driver ordered when he wanted no fuss and no surprises. 2 eggs fried in bubbling fat, whites lacy and crisp at the edges, yolks left runny to burst over a mountain of thick-cut chips. It was cheap, it was quick, and it never once disappointed. The chips came from potatoes peeled by hand out the back, double-fried until golden and heaped so high they slid off the plate. A driver would puncture the yolks and drag each chip through the gold, salt shaken hard, the vinegar bottle passed down the table. Costing barely a shilling through the 60s, it was the fallback for men counting every penny of their run. No black pudding, no gammon, just the honest marriage of egg and spud. Reliable, unpretentious, and deeply satisfying, egg and chips was the Caff's steady heartbeat, always there when nothing fancier would do. Number 19. The egg banjo earned its name from what it did to a man's shirt. A fried egg slapped between 2 doorsteps of white bread, and the moment you bit down, the yolk burst and ran, sending your free hand sweeping across your chest to catch it, the exact motion of strumming a banjo. Drivers wore the yellow stain like a badge. Made fast and eaten faster, it was the breakfast a man grabbed when the tacho was running, and the calf was already 3 minutes behind schedule. The bread was cheap, the egg was cheaper, and the whole thing cost pennies and vanished in 4 bites. Some liked a smear of brown sauce, some a shake of salt. All of them knew the risk they were taking with a clean collar. Messy, fast, and gloriously ill-advised, the egg banjo was the calf sandwich that fought back, and drivers loved it all the more for it. Number 18. The sausage bap turned a couple of bangers into a meal a man could hold in one fist and eat at the wheel. 2 fat pork sausages, blistered black in places from the griddle, wedged into a soft, floury bap with a good slug of red sauce running down the side. It was the breakfast of the driver already late, handed over the counter in a twist of grease-proof paper for the road. The sausages themselves were calf grade, more rusk than pork if truth be told, but fried hard, they crackled and spat and tasted like heaven at 4 in the morning. A bap cost a shilling or so, and filled a gap that beans alone never could. Fathers taught sons that a proper banger butty needed the bread to soak up the fat. Portable, savory, and endlessly practical, the sausage bap was the calf's gift to every man who couldn't stop to sit. Number 17. Kippers brought the sharp tang of the sea to Caffs along the eastern routes, where the fish came down from the northern ports overnight. A pair of golden brown herrings, split and smoked, were grilled or poached in a knob of butter until the flesh flaked away from the fine bones. The smell filled the whole room, oily and smoky, dividing the drivers cleanly between those who craved it and those who fled to the far table. A kipper breakfast was a northern man's comfort, eaten with brown bread and butter and a fierce mug of tea to cut the grease. Bones were the enemy, picked out with blackened fingers between mouthfuls. Cheap, rich, and heavy with oil, The kipper carried a fisherman's fuel into a lorry driver's morning. As the smokehouses closed and tastes softened, the calf kipper faded. But for a generation of drivers, it was the taste of the coast road at dawn. Number 16. Smoked haddock, poached in milk, was the gentler cousin to the kipper and the pride of any calf that could get it fresh. A pale golden fillet simmered slowly in a pan of milk until it turned tender, and the liquid took on its smoky sweetness, often crowned with a poached egg that broke into the milk to make a sauce all its own. It was the breakfast a driver ordered when his stomach had had enough of grease and wanted something that sat lighter. The finnan and the golden cutlet came down from Scotland and the northeast, and a calf near the docks could serve it fresh off the boat. Soft, subtle, and quietly nourishing, it was as close as a transport cafe ever came to elegance. A plate cost a little more than beans and toast, but a man on a long haul reckoned it worth the extra. Comforting and restorative, smoked haddock was the calf's quiet act of mercy. Number 15. Kedgeree was the surprise of the trunk road menu, a leftover of the British Raj that somehow washed up in the transport calf. Flaked smoked haddock, boiled rice, and chopped hard eggs, all bound together with butter and a whisper of curry powder, fried up into a warm golden heap. It was a strange thing to find under fluorescent strip lights beside the beans, but the drivers who knew it swore by it, dense and spiced, and filling enough to last till noon. The dish had crossed oceans to reach a formica table, carried home by returning soldiers and cooks who'd served abroad. A calf that did a good kedgeree drew regulars who'd go miles out of their way for it. Exotic by calf standards, yet built from the cheapest smoked fish, it was thrift dressed up in spice. Warming, unusual, and utterly beloved by the few, kedgeree was the ghost of empire simmering on a Lorry Park griddle. Number 14. Liver and bacon was the plate that fueled the men who worked the hardest and cared least for delicacy. Slices of lamb's or pig's liver, floured and fried fast in the bacon fat, smothered in soft onions and served swimming in a thick, dark gravy. The trick was speed, a minute too long, and the liver turned to leather, so the calf cook worked it hot and quick, flipping it just as the pink vanished. Cheap as anything on the butcher's block, liver gave a driver iron and heft for a fraction of the price of a chop. The metallic smell turned some stomachs, but the men who loved it ate it twice a week and never tired. A plate came with fried bread to mop the gravy, and it stuck to the ribs for hours. Rich, cheap, and unapologetically strong, liver and bacon was the calf dish that separated the sentimental from the seriously hungry. Number 13. Deviled kidneys were the breakfast of a bygone gentry that somehow survived on the trunk roads long after the country houses had let it go. Lamb's kidneys, cored and halved, were fried in butter with a fierce hit of mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and a shake of cayenne until they turned tender, and the pan filled with a peppery, coppery gravy. Served on fried bread or a thick round of toast, they woke a man up faster than any mug of tea. Kidneys were dirt cheap at the butcher, an offcut most families spurned, yet a good calf cook could turn them into something that tasted like a proper feast. The deviling was the whole point, that furious spice cutting through the richness. Sharp, savory, and just a little dangerous, deviled kidneys carried a swagger the rest of the menu lacked. For the driver who ordered them, breakfast was a statement of intent. Number 12. Faggots and peas dragged the taste of the black country onto the calf plate, rich, dark, and unafraid. Balls of minced pig's liver, heart, and belly, bound with breadcrumbs and sage, and wrapped in caul fat, were baked and then served swimming in thick onion gravy beside a mound of mushy peas. On the routes through the Midlands, a calf without faggots was hardly worth stopping at. The flavor was deep and offally, the sort of thing a man either grew up loving or never came round to, and the gravy was so good drivers mopped the plate clean with bread. Cheap to make from the parts others threw away, faggots were thrift turned into something almost celebratory. A plateful cost coppers and sat like a brick until the afternoon. Hearty, regional, and gloriously old-fashioned, faggots and peas were the Caffs' proud reminder that the best fuel often came from the humblest cuts. Number 11. White pudding slipped quietly onto the plates of Caffs along the western and northern routes, the paler, gentler sibling of the black. Made from oatmeal, suet, and pork without the blood, it was sliced thick and fried until the outside crisped and the inside turned soft and savory. Scottish and Irish drivers sought it out, a taste of home on a long run south, and a calf that stocked it kept those men loyal for years. Milder than black pudding, but every bit as filling. White pudding padded out a fry-up for pennies and asked for nothing but a hot pan. The OATY texture set it apart, closer to a savory porridge given a crust. Some cooks laid a slice of each, black and white, side by side, and let the driver choose his allegiance. Cheap, comforting, and quietly regional, white pudding was the Caffs' understated staple, beloved by those who knew to ask for it. Number 10. Black pudding was the dividing line of the British breakfast, and no calf worth its salt was without it. Thick discs of blood sausage, dense and studded with pearls of white fat, fried until the edges crisped and the middle turned rich and crumbling. In the north, it was a badge of pride, each butcher guarding his own blend of oatmeal, spice, and blood, and drivers judged a calf by the quality of its slice. The flavor was deep and iron-rich, a taste that meant business at 4 a.m. Cheap enough to heap onto any plate, black pudding gave a fry-up its backbone and its swagger. Southern drivers wrinkled their noses. Northern ones asked for a double. Fried hard with bacon and egg, it carried a man through the worst of a night shift. Bold, earthy, and fiercely traditional, black pudding was the Caffs' line in the sand, and everyone knew which side they stood on. Number 9. Corned beef hash was the Caffs' tribute to the tinned pantry that fed Britain through leaner years. Diced corned beef from the blue-labeled tin, fried up with onions and chopped potato until the whole lot caught and crusted on the griddle, often crowned with a fried egg, left to run into the mixture. The sharp, salty tang of the corned beef was unmistakable, and the crisp brown bits scraped from the pan were the best part of the plate. Cheap, filling, and endlessly forgiving of whatever spuds were left over, hash was the breakfast a calf made when the delivery van was late and the larder was thin. Drivers loved it for its heft, the way it sat solid against a cold cab and a long haul. A plate cost little more than the tin it came from. Salty, sturdy, and built for endurance, corned beef hash was thrift fried to a crisp on a Lorry Park griddle. Number 8. Gammon and 2 eggs was the plate a driver ordered when the run had paid well and he fancied a treat. A thick slab of gammon, fringed with fat and griddled until the edges caught, served with 2 fried eggs, and if the calf did things properly, a ring of tinned pineapple browned on the flat. It was the aristocrat of the transport cafe menu, dearer than the rest, but worth every extra penny to a hungry man. The salt of the gammon against the sweet of the pineapple and the richness of the runny yolk made a plate that felt like a reward. A round cost the best part of 2 shillings when beans and toast cost 6pence, so a man saved it for a good week. Substantial, savory, and just a touch indulgent, gammon and eggs was the calf's Sunday best, the breakfast that told the room a driver had earned it. Number 7. The fried slice was the foundation stone of the whole brutal breakfast, and no true fry-up stood without it. A thick round of white bread laid onto the griddle in the fat left by the bacon, pressed down and turned until both sides drank up the grease and crisped to a golden, glistening plank. It was less bread than a vehicle for dripping, and drivers used it to chase every last smear of egg yolk and bean sauce around the plate. Costing barely anything, it stretched a breakfast for a fraction of the price of another rasher. The best fried slice shattered at the first bite and left the fingers shining. Cooks who skimped on it, who used a cold pan or too little fat, were quietly marked down forever. Crisp, greasy, and gloriously bad for you, the fried slice was the Caffs' edible sponge, the humble hero soaking up everything the plate had to give. Number 6. Bread and dripping was the starkest plate on the board, a survivor from harder times that clung on in the Caffs long after the shops had moved on. Thick slices of white bread spread with the cold, congealed fat skimmed from a joint of beef, sometimes with a spoonful of the dark, salty jelly from the bottom of the pot and a good crack of pepper. It carried the ghost of a roast dinner long after the meat was gone, and to a driver raised on rationing, it tasted like childhood itself. Costing next to nothing, it was the breakfast of the man watching every penny, or the older driver who simply preferred the old ways. The fat melted slightly against warm bread and coated the tongue with pure, beefy richness. Plain, ancient, and unapologetic, bread and dripping was the Caffs' link to a leaner Britain, a meal that silenced hunger without ever pretending to be anything more. Number 5. The chip butty was the Caffs' masterpiece of carbohydrate excess, chips inside bread, and no apology offered. A heap of thick-cut chips, hot from the fryer, piled between two buttered doorsteps of white bread, with a generous zigzag of red or brown sauce. It was daft, it was glorious, and it filled a driver up for the cost of the chips alone. The bread went soft where it met the steam, the butter melted into the fat, and the whole thing collapsed into a warm, savory mess that a man ate leaning over the table to save his shirt. Northern Caffs served them by the thousand, and a driver could hold one in a fist and steer with the other if the schedule demanded. Cheap, absurd, and utterly satisfying, the chip butty asked no questions and answered every hunger. For sheer bang per penny, nothing on the trunk roads came close. Number 4. The doorstep bacon sandwich was the breakfast every driver measured all others against. Rashers of back bacon fried until the fat ran and the edges crisped, laid between two slabs of white bread cut thick as a paperback, the whole thing pressed down so the fat soaked up into the crumb. Add brown sauce or red, that argument has divided cabs for 60 years, and you had the finest thing a Caff could make. It cost $1 or so, and it was the sandwich a man ordered when he wanted the taste of bacon and nothing to get in its way. The smell of it hit a driver the moment he pushed open the door, and half the reason to stop at all. Simple, perfect, and endlessly debated, the doorstep bacon sarnie was the Caff's crown jewel of the handheld breakfast, the one every driver still dreams about on a cold motorway dawn. Number 3. The mug of stewed tea was not food at all, yet no breakfast on this list existed without it. Brewed strong enough to strip paint, poured from a battered aluminium pot that had sat on the range for hours. The color of creosote and served in a chipped mug you could stand a spoon up in. 2 sugars was standard, 3 was a driver who meant it, and the milk went in without ceremony. This was builder's tea in its truest form, tannic and scalding and utterly reviving, the thing that woke a man after 4 hours in a dark cab. A mug cost a few pence and came refilled without asking. Drivers cupped it in cold hands and let the steam clear their heads before the food even arrived. Fierce, sweet, and life-giving, the Caff tea was the ritual that held the whole room together. The first thing ordered and the last thing finished, at every table, every night. Number 2. The mixed grill was the Caff's grand statement. The plate a driver ordered when hunger had turned to something close to defiance. Bacon, sausage, a lamb chop, a slice of gammon, black pudding, a kidney, fried egg, tomato, mushrooms, and fried bread, all crammed onto a single plate until the china vanished beneath it. It was less a breakfast than a challenge, a wall of meat and fat that no sane man should have finished at 4 in the morning. Yet drivers did, night after night. Costing the best part of half a crown, it was dear, but it fueled a haul the length of the country and left a man walking slower to his cab. Cooks took quiet pride in how much they could fit on one plate. Enormous, reckless, and magnificent, the mixed grill was the Caff flexing every muscle it had. The breakfast that proved a transport cafe feared no appetite alive. Number 1. And finally, in first place, the full English. The lot crowned the transport caff as the greatest fuel ever loaded into a working man. 2 eggs, 3 rashers, 2 sausages, black pudding, beans, tomatoes, mushrooms, fried bread, and a slice of toast on the side, all arriving on a plate wide as a hubcap and hot enough to fog the windows. This was the breakfast the whole cafe existed to serve, the reason a driver would pull in off the A1 at any hour, and the meal against which every other stop was judged. It cost a couple of shillings in the 60s, and it bought a man a full day behind the wheel without a second thought of food. Cooks built it like a monument, everything in its rightful place, the fried slice always at the edge to soak up the rest. Vast, glorious, and utterly British, the full English was the beating heart of the transport caff, the plate that fed the nation's roads through every long, dark, diesel-scented night. No breakfast before or since has ever asked so much of a stomach, or given so much back. From a shovel of fried mushrooms to the towering full English, these 25 breakfasts fed the men who kept Britain moving, one greasy plate at a time. The Caffs are nearly all gone now, cleared away by motorway services and shrink-wrapped convenience. But for the drivers who lived on them, a proper fry-up at 4 in the morning was more than a meal. It was warmth, ritual, and the taste of the open road. Which one would you have ordered? Let me know in the comments, and mind your shirt with that egg banjo.